What is up, SVSers? Welcome to the 87th edition of the SVS Audiophile Happy Hour. Welcome. They changed our hype music up there a little bit.
Where's that cue?
Yeah. I felt like I was going to the spa or something. I gotta work on that. We gotta get Jack, who works in our development team. He's like a part-time DJ. We gotta get him to mix us up something more hypey than that.
Yeah, that was kind of lame.
Ready to take it now. Sorry, I didn't mean to disappoint. So StreamYard, we're on you for that. But welcome everybody. Of course, I have my colleagues here to my right. That would be Larry, our national training manager. Larry, just back from where?
I was down in South Texas and I got home about 17 minutes ago. So coming in here a little hot. So
very nice.
Thank you for making the time and hustling through from Austin all the way over here to Dallas to make the happy hour tonight. And Ed, right below me, our director of customer service and technology. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing grand and looking forward to tonight's show.
Excellent. And of course, Gary, our president. Wonderful to see you as always. Although we saw each other multiple times today already. How are you, my friend?
And you're sick of me too, because we were together in Tampa for Florida Audio Expo. But you know, it's been a great week because we got to meet in person so many of the members of the SVS community. Some people flying their SVS T-shirt colors, and lots of SVS owners came to see us in Tampa, which was great. And now we get to spend the evening with our virtual community. So
that's right. And we will have a little bit more of a download from our experience in Tampa here in a little bit. But of course, we have to stick with tradition here. And tonight we're going to have 3 amazing giveaways. All these people chiming in right now, telling us where you're from. You're all eligible. You need to leave 1 comment to be eligible for the giveaways. Multiple comments does not get you multiple entries, but of course we love to see the conversations and questions. So if you have multiple questions, feel free to chime in with those, because we are doing an extended Q&A. With the demand was heard, and so we're coming back with another live Q&A for today after we get through some house.
And less hijinks, we said to ourselves. We had too many hijinks in the last one, right?
Although I thought the Kansas City versus Philadelphia music was one of the most engaging moments, but yes, there was quite a bit of hijinks, so we're dialing down.
Yeah, we didn't get rolling until half past the hour, so.
Well, there is no Super Bowl this week, so we got an out on that.
Saying they like the hijinks in the comments.
All right, well, maybe next episode it'll be all hijinks and no Q&A, but we'll have to see. But Larry, what do we got on tap for giveaways this evening?
We've got 3 fantastic giveaways. The first one is a pair of our Prime bookshelf speakers, followed up by an SB1000 Pro subwoofer, and then putting a bow on top at the end will be a 3000 micro subwoofer. So
I love
some
that.
great giveaways for you all.
Got one right here.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, we got to go around and do our listening recommendations. And we were traveling last week, so I didn't have as many, but I did end up finishing Rings of Power. It took me a long time to get through, but I did finally finish Rings of Power, which I thought was great. One of the most expensive shows of all time. Lots of quiet dialogue in dark settings, so you got to make sure you really delivered and gave a lot as far as action goes and kept me engaged. And then the other show that I would like to recommend, my wife and I are huge fans of White Lotus. And if you haven't seen it, it sort of like takes a different resort in different parts of the world and shows some of the kooky characters and some of the interactions they have in these resorts. And they use the music. They have this really weird theme music that has sort of really captivated people. And they use it really well to kind of drive the intrigue and some of the interest around some of the scenes that are unfolding there. So White Lotus, great recommendation. Not a big action sequence, but great character development, good acting, and good storyline. So those are my 2 recommendations. And Larry, I'll kick it to you next. What do you got for us?
Well, I finally got into Silo, and I've watched the first 9 of the 10 episodes of season 1. Really digging that. But what I kind of just lost myself in, I guess it was last week or right after the Super Bowl, was finishing Cobra Kai, and I'm sure Ed's going to talk about it in a minute too. But if you're of a certain age, you grew up with that film and the sequels, and you probably have a love for some of the characters in that, and they really did a fantastic job with Cobra Kai. And I was watching it. I was just sitting on my laptop, with my headphones on. My wife was sitting next to me, and there were times where I was like throwing my hands up and kind of going, yeah, and like you have little moments of tears too from the things that happened in there. So it was, I love the show, and I hope that William Zabka gets some love for the next award season because he was pretty fantastic in it.
Well, I saw Silo.
It's a feel good show. I really binged it. I was shocked there were 15 episodes in the last season. I was crawling into bed at 1 a.m. A couple times, and it's just one ends, and you're like, oh, and you just got to watch the next one.
1 a.m. Ed, 1 a.m.
Yep.
One would never guess you're a senior citizen. This is
going to cut into your hunting time.
Wild.
Well, yeah, I'm with you, Larry. Cheering, a couple tears, great story, great writing. A little bit of popcorn and cheese, but that's what it should be. Kind of like Top Gun Maverick. If you're not cheering at the end, something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
So they put a bow on that show in an awesome way, and really enjoyed it. And you're right, it did harken back to Karate Kid, which
Larry, seeing a lot of Silo recommendations in the comments there. That was one you were trying to turn me on to.
It's great. I'm only 9 episodes in, but it's phenomenal.
And Severance too. I'm about 3 episodes in, and oh my gosh, did that show just take a turn? So I'll leave it at that. But the first 2 episodes, I'm like, all right, a little bit more of the same, and then it really kind of took a detour in the 3rd episode. So check out Severance too. Ed, did you have any other recommendations there? I know you were fawning over Cobra Kai. All right, what do you got?
are watching Will Trent. One more show to go in this season. And I saw a whole bunch of Reachers streaming by on there, and we are have 1 episode of Reacher under our belt as well.
I'll be getting to that one next. All right, Gary, what do you got on tap for us?
Well, I don't have any new music. I could talk music all day long, but I don't have any new music. But I will say it's interesting about White Lotus. It's a great date show, but it's all these dysfunctional, horrible relationships that are in the show. So how do you explain that? Because I watched season 2 with my wife. We binged it over the last couple weeks. And the other comment I was going to make is I find the music so bad on White Lotus that I have a negative physical reaction to it. Like when they're singing that Italian stuff. I remember I watched season 2 in Sicily. I literally have a physical negative reaction to it. It's the music is so bad. I'm a very music-oriented person. I'm not trying to be a drama queen, but it's really true. The other 2 shows I'm going to recommend are totally different. One is this one that I heard about from a blogger I know. It's called Apple Cider Vinegar. Has anybody heard about this show?
It is a cut. I have not.
It is a sort of a fake kind of a documentary, but not, about these 2 alternative medicine influencers and basically recommending alternative cures to cancer. And it is riveting. That's one that I could almost go to 1 a.m. with you, Ed, on that one, because I wanted to just keep going and see what was going to happen. It's really good, and it's a very cautionary tale about, not paying attention to conventional medicine. The second one I'm going to recommend, haven't heard anyone talk about this one. Maybe you did previously because it's not that new, is the Netflix show with Keira Knightley called Black Doves. It's excellent. Just started it. Really, really good.
All right. Yeah. I think my wife did watch that Apple Cider show, and she was saying one of the best. It's not a documentary though. It's like
sort of a documentary. It's about a real person
based on a true story.
And then there's another real person that they kind of create a fake identity for. It's on Netflix. People are asking. I guess I didn't say it's on Netflix.
All right. So there you go. Recommendations. Well, it is a bit of a somber day in Hollywood, I would say, today, because they lost one of the all-time great actors. So if you give me a hot minute here, I want to share my screen. Many of you may know that recently oh, that's not it. Sorry about that. Gene Hackman passed away today, and I know there's some controversy over that, but we wanted to talk about just a few of our favorite movies, and I'm going to go deep cut. He was General Mandible in the movie Ants, which was one of my older son's favorite animated movies growing up, and he just played an absolutely amazing villain. So that would be my deep cut as far as one of my favorite Gene Hackman movies of all time. But I want to kick it around here because Larry, I know you probably know more about movies than any one of us. What did Gene Hackman mean to you, or what were some of your favorite of his movies?
Well, growing up, I'm 46, so anybody that's in my age, you probably watched Hoosiers a zillion times in the 80s,
Yeah.
especially if you're a sports fan. You go to a basketball game or a football game, and they're trying to rally the fans towards the end of the game, or during an intricate part of a game. You'll see that scene get popped up on the Jumbotron. Enemy of the State, I think, was a pretty great thriller back in the day too. Birdcage, seeing him take on that role of the politician was pretty fun. And my wife and I watched the movie Heartbreakers way more than we should, but he was really great in that one too. So a ton of phenomenal films. And I was looking earlier because I was like, we need to watch one of his movies tonight. There's not a ton of them streaming, so we dig pretty deep to find some of his movies, or just go down and grab some of the ones from the collection downstairs.
Ed, what do you got? Any favorite Gene Hackman movies?
Well, I got a few years on Larry, so I'll kick it way back. The French Connection, one of my favorite older movies with Hackman in it. Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood, and Uncommon Valor. Those were three great ones. I did like Enemy of the State as well, Larry. Excellent movie.
And Gary, reflect on some Gene Hackman movies for us.
I'm having a tough time with this because you guys are picking all my movies.
That's why we made you go last.
I will say, Unforgiven, I loved it so much. I actually got the 4K Blu-ray, after the fact, and rewatched it. I think it's awesome, and he steals the show in that movie. Yeah. He's really the great in it. French Connection, I think he won an Oscar for that, but the really reason to watch French Connection is the greatest car chase scene ever. It's just crazy, where he's chasing a train, basically under a train. It's great. So I definitely recommend those.
It's a car. Yeah.
Pardon me?
There's a collision in that chase where he hits a person who wasn't supposed to be on set because they were closing down streets. And there's a collision in the film. Yeah, it's just some dude driving and he smashes into him, and they keep going.
They're like, keep it.
And I'll give you my sleeper, which is The Conversation, which was a Francis Ford Coppola movie, and really, really good one. I recommend that one with no reservation. If you haven't seen it, SVS community, get it. It's worth it.
I also found Get Shorty to be very, very watchable. One of Travolta's best movies, if you ask me. I might have to go back and see if I can find that one on streaming. I would even pay for it tonight just because of what it was. All right, so we were at Florida Audio Expo, and I think you said it already, Gary, but thank you. If anyone, I saw a couple comments in there about people chiming in from Tampa, so if you were able to make it out to the show, thank you for that. And during the show, and I think this is going to become a new tradition for us, we've, for the last several audio shows, been taking requests. And this time we actually took as many of the requests as we could get locked down, and we created a playlist of all those songs. It's about 52 tracks long. And currently you can find it just by looking up SVS Florida Audio Expo 2025 playlist on Qobuz, Tidal, Amazon Music, Spotify, or YouTube Music.
And you're saying that this was literally a playlist created by the people who came to our booth.
That is actually absolutely correct. These are requests that came in from people who visited our room. And this is pretty rare. Like, there's not a lot of brands that take requests at these shows.
Well, I wanted to say something about that. Can I do that, or is that going to derail?
Well, I was teeing you up there. That was me putting the ball in the tee for you. Okay,
thank you. Because I've been doing this a long time. You guys know I'm very old, and one of the cardinal rules of demoing speakers is you pick the tracks that you think will show the speakers in the best light, and you avoid the tracks that don't. I mean, that's why when you walk around these audio shows, they're not going to ask you what you want to play. They're going to play what they want to play because they want to show their product in its best light. And Nick, you actually did this innovation. It made me nervous when we first did it, which was play anything you want on these speakers. You're going to love it. You request, your favorite track, your favorite demo material. And we even had people in Florida, and Larry did a great job, did most of the demos, apologizing that it's not a great recording, but I'll know if the speakers are doing a good job. And sure enough, I mean, they never failed to satisfy, and they satisfy me. And I listen to all kinds of different music other than the soundtrack to White Lotus. So that's a cool thing that the SVS community, or the people coming to our booth in Florida Audio Expo, created this playlist. Very cool.
Yeah, there's a few of them in there that we just had fun with it. Like there's a couple songs in there just my stupid tracks to kind of play. And then we got some fantastic requests. So there's all kinds. There's R&B, there's old school classic rock, there's synthwave, there's Mongolian rock in there. It's
a good list. There's some good sounding tracks here, and some that I didn't know about, and some I didn't think of. Like I love that Chocolate Chip Trip from Tool, which is not really a song, but it's a good track to put a speaker through a workout.
And I love you put my Carpenter Brute song in there too. So if you like the song Maniac from the 80s, give that one a listen there from Carpenter Brute. It's a really cool like synthwave rock cover with some energy.
Yeah, it's a very eclectic list. One of my favorites was Hoist the Colors. It's sort of like a sea shanty pirate song. And we had some kids that came in, and these kids were all about AC/DC. So they made us play Thunderstruck, but then we played this pirate sea shanty, and they were dancing across the room. And I promise you, we were probably the only room anyone was dancing in. And then I also have to give...
I would say we were probably the only room playing a sea shanty.
That is a fair point. I think that's probably true. And then we had a younger gentleman come in too. I think he was only about 18, 19 years old.
Yeah,
We love to see that at these these hi-fi shows. And he suggested this track Mulberry Mouse, which is just like a sort of string, very much focused in the higher frequencies. But I thought it did a phenomenal job showing off the tweeters on our Ultra Evolution series speakers, and just how nimble the transient response was with those speakers as well. So those are two tracks that really caught me. And then the only other anecdote I will share, one of the benefits of taking requests is you get people who come into your room and they're like, well, I was just downstairs listening to a $600,000 speaker system, and I heard this track, and I would love to hear that same track on your system. And I think ours was, it was a pair of Ultra Evolution Pinnacle Tower, so about $5,000 for the pair. And we put it on, and, he sort of had this like nondescript look on his face, like not really reacting. And then a certain point in the song came by, and then it just sort of, his face dropped a little bit. And he's like, I was not getting those dynamics. I was not getting that low frequency extension. And that's the kind of stuff, those are the reactions that really, I think, make us love doing these shows more than anything else, is when we can kind of just force people to really understand that it's special what our design team has done with these new models.
Hey, will you scroll back up to the title for that, Nick? People are looking for the title. Will you scroll back up there for that?
Which one?
The title of
the playlist.
Oh, yeah. It's just SVS Florida Audio Expo 2025 playlist. And it's on all the major streaming except for Apple Music, because for some reason we can't get it to play nice with the service that we use to basically copy all these, but we can create it from scratch on Apple Music too. But you find it on Amazon, Tidal, Qobuz, Spotify, and YouTube Music currently. So fun times at Florida. Thanks again. We'll be at Axpona in April, but we'll have some more broadcasts before then, and be able to hype up what we're going to be doing at Axpona, which might have some surprises there. So last piece of housekeeping before we get to our first giveaway.
Well, I mean, we can say, or you want me to just? I mean,
we'll be building another playlist.
I mean, maybe people will go to Chicago. I mean, Chicago is an easy place to get in and out of. So some people may come from out of town. Expo is the best audio show in North America, in our opinion. We all agree on this. We do a lot of them all around the country, and even in Canada. And we feel like Expo is the strongest show. Plus, it's in Chicago, Schaumburg to be specific. So very easy to get in there, and we're going to have 2 rooms, right, Nick? And we will. I had two big requests at the Florida Audio Expo that kept coming. One was, why can't you show more SVS products? I want to see more of them. There's other things I'm thinking about. And the other one was, why are you guys only doing 2-channel? We know you guys are great at home theater as well. And we didn't want to have home theater and 2-channel in the same room. So we sprung for 2 rooms, and we're going to have one with home theater and one with 2-channel, and a lot more SVS products.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Is that okay, Nick? I mean, people can plan their
good.
travel. Okay.
And we encourage you, if you are going, to bring your song requests, because I'd like to get one that get a playlist that's over 100 tracks long. We did about 52 for our Florida, but I think we can get to 100 tracks for Exponent and have it be one of our finest playlists ever. All right, one more announcement before we get to our first giveaway and jump right into the Q&A. We do have an event coming up with Audio Advice in Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you go to Eventbrite or our Facebook events page and just look up SVS Sound Revolution Experience, you'll be able to RSVP there. But we'll be doing multiple systems, a couple stereo systems, a big over-the-top home theater. We'll be doing some giveaways and a little presentation by Gary, Larry, and I as well. And it's just a great evening out on a Tuesday to hang out with the SVS team, the Audio Advice team, and see their gorgeous showroom and possibly win some free gear. So that is March 11th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Charlotte Audio Advice store.
And that's a beautiful store, by the way. I've been there. It's a beautiful store. We love North Carolina. North Carolina is a really important place for SVS in general, although I think it's a bit of a drive for someone who's in Raleigh or Greensboro, but hopefully we can see many of our friends from North Carolina, South Carolina.
Absolutely. And doing an Ultra Evolution bookshelf speaker giveaway with a Prime Wireless Pro soundbase. So a nice grand prize there with a couple other cool prizes as well. All right. First giveaway of the evening is a pair of the Prime bookshelf speakers. And the person who's going to take home some new speakers is Brandon Evans. Brandon Evans.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Coming away. We'll reach out, get your info, and send those along. All right, you guys ready for some rapid fire lightning round Q&A?
There's some good questions flying by too.
I know. So this is kind of a wide open question, and Ed, maybe you start us off, and Gary can chime in too. Biesco, I'm going to butcher this name. We'll just call him Posey. Posey asks, how do I level match a subwoofer in a 2-channel system?
Oh, that's, I always do it by ear, and the reason why is I'll play the speakers on full range, and then I'll low pass the subwoofer at wherever the speakers roll off in room, and then just start bringing up the level of the subwoofer until the lows match the level of the mids and highs from the speaker. My acid test or end goal is it really should sound like one full range speaker. You should not know there's a subwoofer running in the system. If the sub's too loud on a 2-channel system, it'll draw attention to itself, and they need to tone it down a little bit. So I do level match by ear. I think Gary does as well.
Yeah, and I think there's two questions in that question, although the person may not be asking that, which is figuring out the correct crossover point, figuring out, because with our subwoofers, you can set the crossover point, you can set the slope, and then the volume. And I think you got to do all three: crossover point, slope, and volume, and do it together. And what I always tell people, whether it's a 2-channel system or a home theater, have some recordings where you really know how it should sound. That's really the key. I have some, certainly Nick and Larry are so sick of them because they know I will immediately go to those for home theater or for 2-channel to make sure that the system was set up properly and that we have the correct crossover points. And it's not going to be the same, but I don't agree with varying it according to the content you're playing. Once you set it up for the subwoofer, the speakers, and the room, you shouldn't need to do it again. So it is a fussy process, but then once you do it, it should work well for all content.
And Gary had a great point about the slope of the low pass filter. A ported speaker will roll off more rapidly than a sealed speaker will in room. And that's why we have different low pass filter slopes, because essentially you want to match the roll off slope of the speaker with the low pass filter. So you get a nice symmetrical and smooth transition from the speaker to the subwoofer. We have a choice of 4 slopes: 6, 12, 18, and 24 dB per octave. That covers virtually any type of loudspeaker that you will come across and allows you to get a seamless transition.
So Chris B wants to know, do we use an amplifier or an AVR for our shows to demo speakers?
Yes.
Actually, we brought a new
We do
Peace
both.
out this time. This is the first time we've used at a hi-fi show our new Hagel H400 integrated amp. So I guess the integrated amp for the 2-channel system, but what do we use for our home theater, Larry?
Well, it kind of varies. We've been using, we stick to Denon Marantz. I think all of us, you've heard us talk about this. I saw the question come up, like, what do we recommend? Most of us are Denon Marantz owners. That's what we use at our shows. We typically use something around a 4700 or higher. And if we're doing a big over-the-top system, like one of the large trade shows like CES or CEDIA, or the upcoming Expona, we're using the flagship Denon A10,
A110.
A110.
AVC 110.
Yeah, I knew I was getting there one way or the other, but I think we just all kind of gravitate towards those because, and I see a lot of people popping up their Denon, whether it's a 900 series or a 234 or Marantz Cinema 50, whatever, they all have the same setup and adjustments, and I think they have just a really nice neutral sound and balanced across the board. So that tends to be why I go that route. And I think it's why a majority of us do too.
And you can always throw an external amp behind the receiver for the power-hungry channels. The fronts and the center channel are a great choice. If you got a really big room and you're running a lot of channels and playing it loud, totally okay to throw a multi-channel amp behind the AV receiver. Take the load off.
So relevant question from Gaston. He wants to know, is there a benefit to powering our speakers with monoblock amps?
Well, what I always say about this question is you don't have to do anything, but this is a voluntary hobby. The benefit of our speakers, I think, is that if you have a mid-fi receiver and that's all you have, it will drive our speakers and they will sound great. If you have really high-end components, and monoblocks are, for those in the audience that don't know, it's just basically a separate amplifier for each stereo channel. So like, beyond what a receiver is, where the amplifier, the preamp, and other stuff is in one component, this literally takes the power amp and divides it into one component for left channel, one component for right channel. Presumably, it's a very high performance amplifier. And your SVS speakers, you will hear the benefits of that higher end components, but you don't have to do it. Is there a benefit? Do I prefer monoblocks over stereo? Or the answer is I don't know. It's all about which amplifier is the best. I have a very, very good dual mono amplifier where both amplifiers are in one component, and I would put it up against pretty much anything.
That's basically two monoblocks in the same chassis.
Essentially.
So next question, little context. All of our newer ported subwoofers offer the port tuning adjustments. You can actually plug each port and change it between sealed or extended, trade a little output for a low frequency extension. But Kelly wants to know, when we're actually plugging the ports and making that update within the app, what exactly is happening within the subwoofer? Like, what changes is it enacting when you change those settings from sealed to extended or whatever to actually to make it optimized?
Well, I'll field that one. If you start with what we call
talk about the reason why someone would do it first. Start from the basics, and then you can explain it.
Okay, so we look at one of our subwoofers that has what we call standard, extended, and sealed mode. Standard mode will have the most output over the common bass ranges. Extended mode is still ported, where you plug a port, and it goes deeper.
Plugging one of the ports.
You plug one of the ports, and you get deeper.
And the reason you're doing it, it won't play as loud, but it will go a little bit lower frequency.
Correct. Right? There's a little bit of a trade-off there where you trade just a little bit of dynamic output for some additional deep extension. And then if you plug all the ports and turn it into sealed mode, you get an improvement in transient response and a shallower roll-off slope that takes better advantage of room gain. But you do lose a little bit of max output in the process. So there's pros and cons.
I'm going to translate this into English a little bit. So the reason you buy a ported subwoofer typically is because you want massive output. The reason you might plug the ports in certain situations is because you want the deepest low frequency extension and maybe a little bit more control. And if you plug all three of the ports, you're basically getting the benefits of owning a sealed subwoofer when you want that.
Yep.
So it's kind of a best of both worlds situation. With respect to what the app does, the app basically optimizes the DSP for each configuration. The app is really sophisticated, or I should say the DSP is really sophisticated and allows you to basically have your cake and eat it too, as long as you don't mind the fact that the ported box is a larger cabinet. You can have all the benefits of a ported box and all the benefits of a sealed box in one subwoofer.
Right.
Ed, do you dispute any of that?
Not at all. So there's a combination of, you're changing the physical tuning of the subwoofer by plugging a port, but then when you change the tune in the app, it's a very different looking EQ curve, high pass filter, and it's, like Gary said, optimized for that tune. So we have 3 separate DSP modes for standard, extended, and sealed, in addition to physically changing the port configuration at the subwoofer. So they work together for the optimal response.
So Tracy has a question, and I love this question because it means that she's really into low frequencies, but she's only has 2 subwoofer outputs on the receiver, but she wants to add 2 more, or it could be a he. Sorry, Tracy's one of those names. How can they do that? And the easy way is to add a splitter. We actually add a little splitter that you can attach to the subwoofer outputs, will allow you to run 2 subwoofers off a single output. But you can also what's called daisy chain, which is connect the subwoofers together. So I'm going to ask the follow-up question for Tracy. Are there inherent advantages to using a splitter versus daisy chaining? Because Larry, I know sometimes when you set up, you like to daisy chain. So let's get into a conversation around what the benefits of a one versus the other might be.
Well, going to when we daisy chain, it typically just depends on the room and if I'm liking the balance I get between the output of the receiver for when you're choosing 1 sub or 2. But a real benefit, like we're setting up this event in Austin, this thing we're doing in like 2 months or whatever, losing track of time. But because of the size of the room, we're going to daisy chain. And we're going to be using 4 PB17s in this setup that we're doing. And so I'm going to run left and right, sub 1, sub 2, and then run additional wiring off of those, daisy chaining them to 2 additional subs, just because of the way the room is set up. But you won't tend to lose signal path until you start adding more connections in between. I know Ed's got some conversations around that.
Ed,
too.
do you agree with me that if you could Y out, basically just so I want to make sure everybody's on the same page with what the question is, I have 2 outputs from my receiver and I want 4 subwoofers. Good for you, Tracy. This is the kind of thing that helps me finish my deck remodel. The 2 ways you could do it are, number 1, you get this thing called a Y adapter, which basically takes 1 output and turns it into 2.
Yep.
Or you connect 1 subwoofer to the receiver and then you connect another one to that subwoofer, because we have that input and output of our subwoofers.
Right.
And you can do that with 4 subwoofers or however many you want. I am, just based on what I know about signal path, I would advocate, if you can do it, to do the Y adapter solution, because then everything is getting the signal at the same instant in time. Ed, do you agree with that?
Well, one of the benefits of our subs is that the input and output are physically looped together. So there's no DSP processing done on the signal when you're daisy chaining. So it's moving at the speed of light, essentially. So from that standpoint, there's no difference. What Larry said earlier was, if you're going to daisy chain in a big room, it really helps avoid running super long cables to the back of the room, which is what you'd have to do with the Y splitter. I personally run a Y splitter in my system simply because none of my cable runs are very long. And when you do use a Y splitter, contrary to popular belief, there is no loss of signal strength. It's the same voltage at every branch. So it's a great way to split the signal and run multiple subs.
So they both work fine, but if splitting it works for you in terms of the placement of the subwoofers, that is the preferred way.
There you go. Another dual sub question from Anthony. And Gary, I think you've talked about this, because we always try to set the table when we talk about going dual, but he's asking, we always suggest going dual, but if my single sub sounds great across all the listening positions, wouldn't it be better just to get one single bigger sub, or do you really need duals at that point?
This is a great question, because if you and Ed and Larry and Nick, of course, Nick has become an expert now, can weigh in as well.
You don't have to patronize me.
Well, I kind of am, right? Well, look how you guys treat me when I'm doing setup. They treat me like I'm developmentally challenged. They praise me for like putting a sign together or something. So
you taped that box really good, Gary.
You did it so well, though, Gary. Yeah.
I'm just trying to see how to say this. The room that I have, my main home theater, is just a great room. It just works well. I've had all kinds of different products, speakers, everything, different receivers, and it's never sounded bad. It's never sounded anything but great. I have a single subwoofer. Guess what? I do this for a living. I could put 2 or 3 or 4. It would be fine. But one works well. So if one works well for you, I totally support that, and get the best one that your budget supports. When we tell people to go dual, I always say, divide your budget in half to get 2 subwoofers for whatever your budget is. We're not trying to get you to spend double the money. We're just saying it's not about the horsepower so much. It's about eliminating room nodes. Why you do 2 subwoofers in one room. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah, there was somebody asking in the comments, and I forgot I missed your name there, asking about their room size and was comparing 1,000 to 2,000. And the difference for the room size he has, I was going to recommend 2,000. So if I scroll back, I'll find it. But the benefit really for 2 is you eliminate sweet spots, you eliminate nodes, and we had an issue with that in the room we were at this weekend with the Tampa audio show. Is the null for the 17? We were using an SB 17 Ultra Revolution in the room, and the front 2 seats, front and center, middle, were the null for the subwoofer. And if you moved off to the right or to the left or back 1 row, it changed tremendously. And that's kind of where the benefit becomes of adding additional subwoofer, is it would eliminate some of those nulls, the valleys, some of the peaks you would get, and was just balance that out quite a bit more too, and be a little more enjoyable for everybody.
And there's a follow-up question. Go ahead, Ed, and then I'll do the follow-up.
I was going to say it's pretty rare to have a room where a single subwoofer gives you a great frequency response at the listening position, but it's not unheard of, as Gary's situation demonstrates. So happy birthday to you if that's the case, and you get away with 1 sub and you have a great experience. But most rooms will have, as Larry said, peaks, nulls, standing waves, uneven frequency response, and that's where the additional subwoofer can sort of increase the standing wave density, smooth out the frequency response, more even bass at all locations, and that's really the big benefit of it.
What I was gonna say, the follow-up here is, if I do have 1 subwoofer, some people don't have 2 subwoofers. That's just reality. That's the average person probably doesn't have 2 subwoofers.
Yeah, so all my rooms are single. So.
I'm seeing in the comments, what do I do if I have 1 subwoofer and I'm hearing, what's the best way to place it? So Ed, why don't you explain the subwoofer crawl? If you have 1 subwoofer that you want, what you want to do, if I know you have a life, I know you have other people probably in your living space. So you may not have full flexibility to put the subwoofer wherever you want, but if you have some flexibility, Ed, maybe you can explain the subwoofer crawl and how to figure out where the best place in the room is.
Yep, there's kind of 2 ways to skin that cat. The first one is, if you have multiple locations for the subwoofer, like Gary said, and especially if it's a big, fairly heavy sub, you're better off just moving the sub to all those different locations, listening and seeing which location sounds the best. That's not the subwoofer crawl, but it does work. Especially
that's actually how I do it.
Right. If it's a big
tedious, sub, it does work.
It does work.
Yeah. The other way to do it, moving men furniture sliders, or you're gonna have a
furniture
bad.
Sliders are real beneficial for that. You can get them for carpet and hardwood. The other way is what we call the sub crawl. You actually take the subwoofer and you stick it at the listening position, preferably actually on the couch or in the chair. And that works better if it's a smaller subwoofer. And then you literally crawl around the room with your head down at floor level and listen to which location sounds the best, because room acoustics are reciprocal that way. So one of these locations will be noticeably better and more even sounding than the other ones. And then you put the subwoofer there and you go back to the listening position, and lo and behold, it sounds great. So
let me make one more comment. This is going to annoy people, but this is just reality. To some extent, a null cannot be fixed by the room correction software, because a null is a place where something called phase cancellation is occurring and the bass gets sucked out. And if that's occurring, your room EQ software can dump more bass in those same frequencies into that situation, but it's not going to fix a null. The null will still be there. So it's better to figure out the best location for your subwoofer if you can do that.
And make sure you've notified your family that, you know, they should stay out of the room, because if they walk in and you're crawling around on your hands and knees, it might be a weird conversation.
What the heck's
Why are you down there?
Passionate, that's why.
Yeah.
We are due for a giveaway, and all this subwoofer talk makes me want to give away a subwoofer. So let's give away an SB1000 Pro to Brett Barantini. Brett Barantini, congratulations.
Hey, Brett.
You got an SB1000
Congratulations.
Pro coming your way. So I think I see a comment here from Robert D. He is chiming in from Charlotte, and he wants to know when he can expect to see us on our upcoming trip to the Queen City. So maybe you missed the beginning. March 11th, Audio Advice Charlotte. You can find it on Eventbrite or on our Facebook page to find the details about that event. But that is when we were going to be in Charlotte, March 11th.
Larry, Nick,
so
and I will be there. And we don't do it the way other brands do consumer events. You know, just so anyone who hasn't been to an SVS event, it's a 2-hour-long event. It's not a sales event. We're not standing around trying to sell stuff. In fact, what it is although we're there and we're obviously representing SVS, I'll be there, Nick will be there, Larry, and then Ken, who's not on this show, but who you guys have seen in different broadcasts. We're just there to talk about the joys of home theater, of 2-channel, of great sound, and help people learn and see the possibilities of what they can do in their living space. It is not really about SVS in specific. Although here and there, a question or two about SVS does seem to come up.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, can I plug another event? Can I plug an event that's happening like just days before that, because we just got it locked down?
Let's do it. Dallas, I assume you're going to Dallas?
Yeah, so I'm going to Atlanta next week to train a new dealer, flying home and going straight into a weekend event with local dealer Star Power. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the March 7th, 8th, and 9th. We're doing the Star Power Expo, and I'm going to have a full Ultra Evolution surround sound system on display in the Dallas store, along with the new SB17 Ultra Revolution. But Saturday, we're going to do something fun. We're going to do a Subwoofer 101 class for anyone that wants to come along and hang out. We're going to talk about, you know, how to pick the right sub, how to find placement, some of these questions we ask here. So we're going to do a full Q&A. I don't know how long it's going to take. It'll be like an hour plus, but I'm going to be hanging out there doing theater demos and stuff all day too. So I keep forgetting we need to get that on the calendar and kind of hype that up a bit. But it's something we just locked down. So if you're around the DFW area next weekend, March 7th, 8th, 9th, I'll be out there the 7th and the 8th for certain to hang out with everybody.
That's the South Lake, Dallas South Lake store.
No, the Dallas location. So it's what they refer to as the mothership. So.
All right. And I want to see if we can live stream that Subwoofer 101 course that you're going to do there, because I think that might be fun. But we'll talk offline and see if we can get that going, because I think it'll be a great value add for people. All right. Let's answer a question about room correction. Hexam wants to know, you have room correction. How often should you run it? When you get new furniture, new speakers, when you add treatments? Like, at what point should you be running your room correction software based on various upgrades to your system?
If you're OCD like me, any change you make, you rerun that stuff. Ed?
That's pretty definitive.
Nick kind of nailed it. If you change your speakers, furniture, upholstery, room acoustics, curtains, room treatments, anything like that changes.
You're in a new relationship. If the person is different that's hanging out with you, rerun the room. I'm kidding.
Rerun room correction.
I mean, anything that could change sort of the reflective properties of the room, or if it's new gear, changes the sound stage or output, anything like that can impact the previous measurements that were taken with older gear or, no treatment. So think of it as just incremental improvements every time you add a new piece. So I think it's a great question, though.
Speaking of room treatments, we're years there, Nick.
They're coming soon. Tony B wants to know, is a PB17 Ultra Revolution in sealed mode any more powerful than the SB17 Revolution? My bad. Sorry. The SB17 Ultra Revolution in its natural state. So sealed mode PB17 Ultra Revolution versus SB17. More power? Same?
That's a really good question. I like that question.
It is.
Ed, what do you want to say about that?
Well, the cabinet's larger, and that improves sensitivity and efficiency at the deepest frequencies. So the PB17 in sealed mode has an edge down deep, but actually the SB17 turns the tables. The smaller cabinet concentrates mid and upper bass energy, and we actually see the SB17 pulling ahead a little bit in the mid and upper bass ranges. So shades of gray, they're very close, but the bigger cabinet does help the PB17 in sealed mode down deep.
A lot of app questions today. Taylor wants to know, when using the presets in the SVS Subwoofer Control app, what should the differences be between the music and the movie preset? Like, how do you differentiate? What are some recommended settings? And I know we can't give the specifics because every room and every system's different. But like, how would you generally tell people?
Maybe we can talk to the sort of the big picture of those two presets, because I don't use them. Because for me, I want my subwoofer to be clean, accurate. I want it to go deep. I want it to be true to the content. And so for that reason, I set it up that way, and it should be great for movies or music. But some other folks really want the subwoofer to be very careful, accurate, refined with music. But then when they're watching, name a movie, that Godzilla one, Godzilla -1, but they want it to blow their doors off, impress their neighbors, knock their artwork off the wall. Then they might set the movie mode to go deeper, to be maybe a little more bloomy in the bass, not boomy, but like a little more bloom. And
bloomy. That's a new one for me.
Well, what it kind of means is it's a little bit more fat. The bass feels fatter, and that can be fun for a movie. Ed, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. That is the biggest change that I see on the customer service side. Is movie presets tend to be run a little bit hotter than music because you want a little bit of spice on your steak for movies, and then for music it's a level match. I do see some of that third preset for late night listening. That's kind of popular, actually. You'll actually turn the sub down 6-7 dB to have less potential to disturb people in the house at night, and that's a common use for the third preset.
Yeah, and we talk about this a lot at the events. Movie bass and theatrical bass are very different, or music bass and movie bass are very different. So if you're using a surround sound receiver and you also use that same receiver for 2-channel, the bass settings will be wildly different because you will likely be running your speakers in a small setting with a crossover applied to the speakers and then letting the subwoofer run that full LFE 120 hertz. But if you're running 2-channel and you do that, it will be overpowering. It'll be in your face, and there'll be times we might actually hear singing coming from the subwoofer. So that's where you get into the low pass filter of the app and would blend the crossover point inside the subwoofer using the LFE adjustment. And you can find that stuff if you go to our site under the subwoofer matching tool and plug in your speakers. You can actually find those bass management settings as kind of a starting point and go from there.
So Eric B wants to know, you sell multiple kinds of SVS SoundPath cables, including subwoofer, RCA cables, and XLR. Is there a benefit to using the RCA RCA versus the balanced XLR when connecting subwoofers? In what scenario does it make sense?
I think I'll let Ed and Larry weigh in on this, but to me, the primary benefit of balanced cable and a balanced connection is it lowers the noise floor, and there's a higher likelihood of noise rejection or hum rejection. If you don't have a problem, I don't think you're going to hear the benefits of balanced cable. But I know that there are people out there that don't agree with this. Ed, what do you think?
Well, Gary nailed it. The signal is identical, RCA, XLR. XLR just has a higher ability, better ability to reject noise, hum, RFI, things like that in the signal. So, I mean, XLR got its start on the Pro Sound side for that exact reason. And it's a very robust connection as well. So if you want the absolute best and want to be 100% sure you're rejecting all potential noise, hum, RFI, then XLR is great. But for most applications in a home environment, RCA works perfectly well. And again, it's the same exact signal. There's no improvement in signal quality with XLR. There's just a potential noise reduction.
Everyone's asking about my system and what do I have, and so I guess I let it slip that I have more than one system in my house. Is that really that surprising to you guys?
Gary, we got to do the tour. I think we did a tour the first year that we were doing the happy hours. You kind of showcased some of your systems, your gym system, but I have to imagine those have evolved quite a bit since the last tour. So it may be the next broadcast. It sounds like your dogs want to chime in too. We got to do a tour of your various systems in your house.
That'll be fun, and we're getting the house together. Sorry, my dog is barking, so I'm going to mute when I'm not talking.
All good. Now we can ask the tough questions.
No. But I'm getting the house in shape. I wasn't kidding about the deck remodel, so you got to remember one thing. I'm always swapping things in and out, so it doesn't look built in because I'm swapping stuff in and out all the time. So don't expect it to look like. Not that I'm a rich person. It doesn't look like some rich person's system. It looks like a person who does this for a living, which I do.
And there could be some top secret things that are laying around the house too that people
Sometimes
don't know. Gary's very involved with voicing and some of the prototypes, the initial ones, they come straight to his house. So you never know what you might see in the background.
That's why I'm always worried about my camera as well. It's like, shoot, I gotta move stuff around.
Throw a tablecloth over that one over there. All right, here's a question from AB, and it's impossible to answer this question for what it is, but I think we can give good context. AB has 100 hertz crossover low pass filter, in another word, for his SB2000 Pro, and that's what all of his speakers are crossed at, that frequency. So obviously we can't say if that's right or wrong, but to what extent can you help choose that best low pass filter? Like what knowledge or what goes into that deciding factor?
And this is for an AV system?
It says all my speakers, so I got to think this is a home theater setup.
So in a home theater setup, the crossover applies a high pass filter to the speakers, which is a bass filter, and a low pass filter to the subwoofer channel. So that's what forms the digital crossover.
So I want to. People don't know what low pass and high pass means. So I know some people on this show know it, but some people don't. So what this person, since we're assuming they have a home theater, then they have a receiver that asks, do you have large speakers? Do you have small speakers? And if it's a more sophisticated receiver, it might even distinguish gradients of how large the speakers are, how small they are. And what the receiver is trying to decide is how much low frequencies to send to your full range speakers. Because what goes to your subwoofer in a home theater is always the same. It's the LFE, it's the bass channel that the content creator makes. So what your receiver is really asking is how much bass should the main speakers get, and should the surround speakers get, the center channel, and all that. And Ed, one thing that I say is whatever your room correction software tells you, don't argue with it, because it will make decisions that will not ruin, but will make the sound worse overall. So best to go with what it thinks it's hearing. Don't try, don't argue with it and say, well, my speakers aren't small, they're large. I'm going to say they're large. Ed, want to expand on that now?
Yeah, the rule of thumb that we like to say is don't go deeper than the crossover that the AV receiver selects. You can bump it up a little bit safely because the receiver has built EQ filters down to that point. But if you push it deeper than the crossover, it's a little bit of a crapshoot, and the receiver has no equalization built for the speaker. So it's either leave it where it is or bump it up slightly if you want a higher crossover for the speakers. And to answer the original question, 100 hertz for those speakers, I think is a little bit high, but it's certainly fine. It's within the normal range. I'd say normal range is 180, 60. Those three are the most popular crossover frequencies. And the larger and more bass capable the speaker, the deeper crossover that it can tolerate. And there's some benefits to that. It tends to localize bass effects to that speaker and only sends the really deep stuff to the subwoofer. So I am a fan of large bass capable speakers for that reason.
All right, I think we got time for one.
That's pretty complete, and you got two different kind of approaches of looking at it. Just you can outsmart yourself is the main cautionary thing that I say. You can outsmart yourself because the receiver will think it's doing one thing when it isn't, and that can create not the best sound. Time for the last giveaway, isn't it, Nick?
One more giveaway we have, but I have to say thank you to whoever said I look like Chris O'Donnell with my new. I have a new haircut. He said I look like Chris O'Donnell with my new haircut.
I saw Chris Pratt. I didn't see O'Donnell.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's both. I don't know. Chris Pratt's definitely a compliment. Chris O'Donnell, I'm sort of on the fence. He's seen better days now. So last giveaway of the evening is a 3000 micro subwoofer. And before we do that, quick recap on our events that are coming up. Audio Advice Charlotte on March 11th, Expo in April. And then for the first time ever, we're going to be at the Lone Star Audio Fest in Austin. And there's a film festival there, and we are setting up a completely over-the-top system.
We were chosen to be the sound system for the theater of the film festival, so it was a great honor.
That is true. We had a number of producers come to us at CES, the big tech show in Vegas, and say, we've heard so much about your speakers. We would love to have you guys come and set up this big system for this film festival and be the official provider of audio. And we were like, all right, let's get some details. And now it's all coming to fruition here. So it's pretty exciting for us. The film festival will actually go to a couple other audio shows too, but it's going to be completely over the top. Ultra Evolution Pinnacle Towers in the front, left, center, right. And then Ultra Evolution Towers has our side and rear surrounds. And then four PB17 Ultra Revolutions. We got to fill up a ballroom here. So we'll have more details, and we're going to be doing some pictures from it. But
and somebody asked again about the Dallas event, the March 7th and 8th. Friday and Saturday, it's at Star Power, one word, spelled just like it sounds. That'll be on their store on the Tollway in Dallas.
That's right. So we are going hard with the events, and honestly, we love it. We loved having time out in Florida with some of our community, and it's the most fun part of what I do, and I think I could say the same for Larry and Gary. So
totally
we're going to keep rolling with those. But our final giveaway of the evening is a 3000 micro subwoofer, and the winner is Nick B.
All right,
awesome.
Burklow, Nick Burklow,
not Nick Brown. Who said Nick looks like Chris Pratt? I'm not trusting.
Yeah, scroll back. That was the guy that called him Chris Pratt.
It was
Burklow.
I saw
Burklow. Congratulations, Nick, my brethren. You got yourself a new micro subwoofer coming your way. Congratulations. And we will be doing a live stream from the Audio Advice event in Charlotte. It won't be an official happy hour, but we'll be having fun and showing you their showroom, doing some giveaways. So stay tuned for
beautiful
March 11th
showroom.
For that.
It'll be cool.
Yep. And until then, happy listening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Great being